Psychological clutter is comprised of the issues we face each day but don't process, deal with, and then move on from them. Instead, they sit in our subconscious, causing us stress, doubt, and aggression. What causes psychological clutter?
Your brain remembers outdated, old, or incomplete to-do lists. Plus, unresolved arguments, disagreements, and lies can create a herd of elephants that roam around in your memory.
Sheena Monnin, CEO of Custom Life Design, will be sharing her elephant in the room stories as Hands on the Wheel, Getting Control of Your Life is debuting this summer. Airing on Vision 12, Public Access, Farmington, Farmington Hills, and Novi.
As a public access alumni, my assignment is to take a local landmark and a local personality and then to inspire, educate, or bring awareness to a topic using public access. I chose the topic of adult bullying and I asked a prior working professional to help me. Sheena Monnin and I began working together at the 2014 Miss Michigan pageant. And again in 2015 as we worked for the Glory Reels Christian Film Festival.
Welcome to the 2015 Glory Reels.
Her dignity and courage to overcome a battle of adult bullying inspired me. I was grateful when she said I could do my alumni assignment on her and her newly published self-help book. With the help of Brian Golden, founder of Public Access University, my name is Jody White, and I am pleased to share with you a moment in time.
Psychological clutter can be harmful. For the high performers, living with your own self-expectations is hard enough. But add on top of that, those of others, and before you know it, you've given your personal power away by chasing what is important to them rather than what is important to you. Personal power?
Often I find the expectations of parents, role models from childhood, and early bosses have the most impact on how people perceive and measure their success. These expectations turn into mountains of pressure, constantly pushing down on your mind. These mountains directly influence your self-image. Your self-talk is colored and shaded by the voices of early influencers in your life.
Welcome to A Moment in Time.
Hi, Sydney. I'm glad to be here with you today. Before we get started talking about me, I'm dying to find out what it has been like to be Miss Farmington 2015.
Oh, it's an amazing experience. I get to serve as ambassador for Farmington and Farmington Hills. I get to go to all sorts of events for children and for adults, even right here at the Governor Warner Mansion for the porch parties.
Oh, wow. What's a porch party like?
It's so much fun. We get to see lots of people from all over the community and celebrate like history, as we're such a history-oriented city. It's so awesome.
Wonderful. Now, this is my second time in Farmington.
Oh, wow.
What is a must-see thing that I have to do while I'm here, other than meeting the local celebrity, which is you?
I definitely say you have to come see the market. The farmers markets on Saturdays are absolutely awesome. It's so great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Now, you have a sad day coming up.
I do.
Your title's going to be given to the next girl. Do you have any other plans to compete in the future, or what can we be looking forward to seeing you in the future?
I'm not sure yet. I'm planning on going to Michigan State University for biomedical engineering in the fall.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure what's happening with pageant life, but I'm starting college in the fall.
Oh, good. Wonderful.
Yeah.
You have beauty and brains then. Good.
Thank you. Yeah. So you state in your new book that your life does not come with a pause button. As CEO of the Custom Life Design, what does this mean to you?
Well, when I think of my life and the lives of the clients that I work with and the people that I've met when I used to compete in pageants and the people that you meet in everyday life, what I've come to see is that life moves so fast that sometimes we don't realize the impact of the small decisions that we make every single day. And sometimes we think that, oh, if I can just keep moving, if I can just do more and more, then everything will work out and everything will be fine. And I'm always surprised when clients come to me and life isn't fine and they can't figure out why. And I say, well, sometimes we forget that the choices we make every single day do impact our future, sometimes far greater than we realize. And if we can just remember that the choices that I'm making today, from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed, they are forever choices for the most part, and we can't push pause and stop life to rethink what we have decided this morning, yesterday, or last month. And I feel like if more and more people would understand how important those small decisions are, our lives could be changed for the better.
That's such awesome advice. When did you kind of learn, like, when did that advice really hit you and hit home for you?
I think that when I've been competing in the past, a couple of instances have happened in a really large way, I realized how important each moment is, and how important our choices are in the moment. And a lot of us, we go through life and we go from one activity to another. Life is statistically, the experts are saying, busier now than it's ever been. And in some ways it's probably not healthy for us, but we have to keep going to keep up with other people. And in the course of living a busy life, I really realized I'm a better person when I stop and I say, what choices am I making? Are these good choices? Are they smart choices? Am I really thinking through the long-term impact? And I feel like the last few years especially, I'm 31 now, when I hit 30, I feel like I became far more wise and I became far more aware of the impact my choices are having for my future.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for that advice.
Yeah.
So I also try and choose my approach and my words with intention. I took the high road, not because it was easier, but because it was the right thing to do. So I must ask you about the $10 million lawsuit.
That's right. I feel like when we look at the lawsuit and in everything that happened a few years ago, there was definitely intention behind some of the public statements that were made. And to be perfectly frank with you, a lot of those statements were very hurtful against me. And I feel the intention behind them was to be hurtful. But to take it to a 10,000-foot level, whenever we do or we say something, we always want to get something back from it. That's human nature. And you go to any counselor and they'll tell you, whatever you say or you do, there's motives behind it. And that's okay, that's human nature, but we have to examine, what are my motives? You know, what am I wanting to get out of the moment? When you go to an appearance, one of your motives most likely is to touch the hearts of the people there, to bring Farmington close to their hearts and to remind them of some of the values and the ethical things that you stand for and that this community stands for, right? And that's part of your motive. And your motive comes out in your words and in your actions. But sometimes as we go through life, particularly business professionals, we just chug right along, and we sometimes forget that our motives are revealed a lot more frequently than we realize. It's just important, I think, no matter what we're doing, to be self-aware. And that's one of the things that I really talk about in my book and in my business is we need to slow down at least long enough to understand what's going on in our own mind. Because I can't really be present with you or be present with a client if I haven't even analyzed what's going on in my own mind today. Am I causing myself stress? Are my thoughts driving me in a direction that maybe I don't even want to go in, but I haven't stopped to think about what I'm thinking about in order to make a change? And I feel like all of these principles are very closely intertwined. And if we let one of them race out of control, the next thing we know, 3 or 4 areas in our life are out of control, and we wind up wondering what happened. How did I get here? I feel like I'm constantly racing and I don't even know where I'm going. A lot of people get to that point, and it's important just to take a quick moment and reassess. I would suggest every day, if not a few times a day, just check in with yourself. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Am I being self-aware? Am I really present where I am? All of these factors work well together to help us to be the healthiest that we can be.
Awesome advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So in your book, you talk about the importance of maintaining control. Why is it so important?
That's actually a funny story. That's funny now on the other side of it, but there was one instance where I was going to visit a client, all right, and I always like to arrive early because I don't like being late, for one thing, but I also like to assess the situation and kind of get a vibe for the company, what their needs are, where they're struggling, and assess the entirety of it before I actually go into a meeting. So I was there probably 15 or 20 minutes early, and I was ushered into the conference room, and I had a one-on-one training scheduled. A gentleman comes in, rushing in, literally almost running. I'm here, am I late? And I say, hello, I'm Sheena, who are you? You know, I wasn't scheduled to work with him. And come to find out, he was very worried because he had received a message that there was a mandatory group training that morning, and he had taken a day off, and there was some sort of miscommunication that we quickly found out something had gone wrong. So I calmed him down. I said, no, I don't believe I'm scheduled to give a group training today. Let me double check my calendar. He double checked his, showed me the message. There's something going wrong, okay? We then proceeded to find out who had sent him the message and what the scheduling error had been. And in the course of understanding the whole situation, I saw 2 different things that happened. one thing had happened, and both had to do with giving control away. Okay, because my book is about how do we keep control? Is it healthy? What does it look like? And this is what it should never look like, but it often happens to us. The gentleman had reacted very quickly to the message. He hadn't double checked. He hadn't called anyone. He simply received the message, assumed he was incorrect, and came rushing to the office on his day off. Okay? The person who had scheduled and sent out the message to him had been rather lackadaisical in their approach. They hadn't looked through the details. They'd made a mistake. They had gone on autopilot. So you see the reactive side of losing control. The gentleman wasted his entire morning because I wasn't prepared to give a group training, so he just had to go on home. And the person who had scheduled it had fallen into autopilot and simply sort of sat on the job and not been proactive with her details. And I put this true example in the book because it illustrates both extremes of what can happen when we give control away in our lives. And if we are finding ourselves always reacting and rushing and racing around, then in essence, we're letting our schedule, our boss, our coworkers control us. And we're not maintaining a healthy boundary. We're not double checking. We're simply always reactive. And it's not psychologically healthy for us to have those messages firing in our brains constantly. It causes literal fraying on the ends of our telomeres, of our nerves in the brain, and this is very damaging, and it's very hard, if not impossible, to repair. So that's one extreme of it, if we give control away to our environment, to people. The other extreme of giving control away is simply sitting on the job. You've been doing the same job for year after year. You think you have all your details nailed down. And so you don't double check. You don't look at the details. You simply skim through things. And you can produce fine work because you've been doing it so long, but you're not engaged with the work. And both extremes happened within this organization. And thankfully, both people were willing to discuss it and we got things worked out. But in the process, what I find is company money was wasted, because we spent time fixing a problem that potentially shouldn't have even been there. And also the employee satisfaction was down because the guy was really upset that he had to come in on his day off. And what I find with a lot of companies, unfortunately, is there are a lot of those details that are overlooked, and people either get complacent in their job or they feel like they're trying so hard to please and so hard to prove themselves invaluable that they feel constantly reactive, and that will lead to burnout. So neither extreme is good, and I always advocate taking baby steps toward middle ground. You know, it's never appropriate to look at your boss and say, nope, I'm not doing that. But there are ways to express, there's a lot on my plate right now, I'm not sure I can get to this or get to that. And again, it's just walking toward the middle ground and finding ways to communicate what you think and what you feel without imposing on someone else. There's always a lot of gray area when it comes to building a strong team.
Yeah, definitely, there is.
Yeah.
So what are some of those baby steps that you suggest be taken to help bring you back into control of your life?
Absolutely. So if you find yourself constantly reacting to your circumstances, I would suggest writing a short list. Who do I feel I'm always being reactive around? That's the first step. Identify your reactive stressors or triggers in your life. Once you identify who or what is causing this constant reactivity, take a look at if it's something that you, in essence, are kind of creating for yourself. You know, I assume that my boss or my manager wants this, therefore I'm constantly racing to catch up. Well, maybe my assumption is wrong. Or maybe I'm doing more work that I don't have to do. And if you start looking at it objectively, you can kind of figure out where that boundary line is. You know, when do I stop pleasing so much and really focus more on what do I need to do for my own job? That's one end of the spectrum. Yeah. If you find yourself more complacent, that's more easy to fix because we have to get you prodded and going along and get you more passionate and engaged with your work. And that is a step-by-step process of finding ways to stop. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's I'm really busy in other areas of my life and work is getting the leftovers of my energy, and taking those small steps to find balance in that area again.
In your book, one of the advice lessons that resonated most with me was it's okay to have feelings. It's not okay to allow those feelings to control you. As difficult as that philosophy is to live by, I did my best to live by it. How did you come to that?
I think that most of us have feelings. We have a lot of things that we feel and we desire and we dream about every single day. And that's fine, that's healthy. But what I've come to see, specifically in the business world, when we let our emotions drive us, then we start making choices, we start saying things that we may regret in the future. And if you think about any team environment, any team of managers, employees getting together, there's a problem, there's a meeting, there are objectives to go over, you can immediately tell who's leading with their emotions. Their voice becomes louder. They generally try to dominate the conversation. They immediately become more defensive because they are leading emotionally, therefore it's not logic-based. Logic-based is more calm, it's more sensible, it's more proven by facts, and most people don't believe they have to defend their logic as much as they do their emotions, because your emotions aren't coming from a firm foundation generally. And when I see that happen in a team environment, the team can fracture instead of becoming stronger. So what I always like to say is it's important to affirm that you believe very strongly something or you feel very strongly, and that's all right, but leave those feelings at the door, because at the end of the day, if we lead emotionally, it will alienate others. So if you and I disagreed on whether Farmington was better than Lake Orion, and I live in Lake Orion and you live in Farmington, and we were both coming at each other emotionally, it would be really difficult for us to actually be able to work together in peace, because we're letting those emotions bounce off of each other. But if we approached it and we felt very strongly about it, but we approached it from logic, and you said, well, you know what, Sheena? Farmington has these 5 things to offer that Lake Orion doesn't have. And factually, I say you're right. However, Lake Orion has these things as well that Farmington doesn't. It's more calm, and we don't have to go back and forth as many times, because facts speak for themselves, and facts generally are based on truth, and there's not much you can do to argue about that. And when teams focus on the facts and they focus on the truth of the situation, not something subjective like our feelings, then the team can grow and the team can blossom, and that's where true success can happen for the company.
So Sheena, you just spoke about teams. What about leadership? You say in your book, remember your value, celebrate your value, and never allow anyone or anything to take that value away. What I found with a lot of leaders is that they are in essence trying to copy other leaders that they've seen over the years, or their parents from the past. And a lot of times we get caught up in our culture that says you have to overperform. And sometimes we don't know how to overperform other than looking at those around us and copying their style. But what I see is a lot of frustration. If someone is, for example, not a strong type A personality, but the only examples they have seen in leadership are those strong, extroverted type A people, I've seen so many managers wear themselves out because they're trying to copy a personality style and a strength set that simply isn't their own. And in the process, we lose our sense of self-worth because I can't succeed as I am, so I have to go copy someone else. And when I'm working with leaders specifically, we identify what are your personality strengths? How can we make those stronger? And how can we avoid copying someone else who may have achieved success, but maybe they did it differently than I would? I mean, think about all the leadership books that you have out there, these successful, charismatic people who have been, you know, a success in their career, but maybe I don't even think the way they do. Maybe I don't even process information the way they do. I would be deeply frustrated in my mind psychologically if I was trying to copy their style. And so I throw all of that out the window when I'm working with companies, and I say, look, we have to identify who you are and let's celebrate what your strengths are. What do you bring to the table? And instead of saying, oh, everyone has to lead a certain way, let's figure out how we're all different and use that to work together. I found it to be far more successful than just trying to copy random leaders out there that have achieved success. And I find if you really want to retain a sense of value, don't lose the core of who you are. Even if everything around you is saying you can't be that way, if that's who you are, you can find strengths and use those rather than copying someone else. What do you find as one of your strongest, one of your biggest strengths that are more different than what everyone else might think of as a leadership strength?
Yes, I'm not very extroverted. I'm not the Energizer Bunny, so to speak, and I don't run around doing everything. I'm far more reserved, and I'm very organized in my approach. And most people who go into independent consulting, which is what I do, they are very, very extroverted, and they're everywhere doing everything. But I've found success by being more strategic And because I am different than your typical leader in this realm, I can help those who are similar to me to realize, you know, you don't have to be everything to everyone. You can focus on 1 or 2 or 5 projects and make that your priority instead of running around and doing everything. And I feel like the more that society progresses and the more that psychology is welcomed into the workplace, particularly in some states like Texas and California, people are realizing we don't all have to be the same to be successful. We can really be different, and there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, differences are quite important.
They are.
So thank you, Ms. Monnin, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on A Moment of Time. Do you do other speaking engagements?
I do, yes. I do a lot of speaking on conflict resolution and leadership development. And some of the themes in my book, Hands on the Wheel, have to do with what is taught in my company because I found it to be so important and so successful. And going through the lawsuit and all of the trauma and the conflict involved with that has been a good foundation for me to use my training in psychology to help other people. I'm speaking a lot with the Rotary. I'm speaking with Toastmasters. I have different interviews coming up as well that will be either local or national, and I'm really excited just to promote some of the things that are important for us to remember that we don't often take the time to remember. You know, things like being self-aware, things like what are appropriate boundaries? Is control okay? I get asked that frequently when people read the book. Is it really okay to think about being in control of my life? That sounds so bossy. And to be able to explain what healthy control is versus unhealthy control. How do I identify if someone is infringing on my boundaries? Am I giving too much? Am I taking too much? I mean, these are things that if we don't identify them over the course of months and years, they lead to a lot of frustration, and they lead to a lot of people feeling like they're manipulated. And sometimes people really are not manipulated. It's just they've given so much control away that it's a feeling that becomes real. Because our feelings are born, then they influence our thoughts, then all of a sudden we believe things, and sometimes we can't remember why we believe what we believe. It's just there, it's ingrained in us. And what I tell a lot of people to think about, if you're wondering, do I have appropriate boundaries or not? Do you know the game Tug of War?
Yeah.
Where you have a rope and we're on one side, someone's on the other side, and there's a boundary line in the middle. And when people ask me, is it really okay to think about being in control? I say, is it really okay to hold on to that end of the tug of war rope? And the answer is yes, it is. It's fine. You know, we're both having this tension between us, but it's healthy tension because I don't want to give too much control away, but I never want to take control from someone else either. And having that visual has been really helpful to some of my clients, just reminding themselves, you know, it's all right that I'm standing my ground. Because a lot of people feel like they have to give when really just stand there. You can be a brick wall. It's really all right. It's healthy to do. And in the end, you'll find that there's less stress in your life. And that's what we want for companies and for individuals.
Yeah, these are really important lessons. So how does one get a copy of your book, Hands on the Wheel, Getting in Control of Your Life?
Yes, my book is available in print and ebook version from my website, customlifedesign.com. Also from Amazon. You just type in my name and my book comes up, or type in the title of the book. And I look forward to perhaps seeing you again in the future in a future pageant.
Yes.
And good luck at Michigan State. I think you're going to do great.
Thank you so much. This is Miss Farmington, Sydney Strand, here with Sheena Monnin at the beautiful Governor Warner Mission here in downtown Farmington. Thank you so much for watching.